Hello everybody, it's me Ghost Bunny, and today I'm going to be reading chapter 10 of Heaven Official's Blessing. We are almost at the end, just missing this one and one more chapter, and we're at the end of volume 1. Now don't be worried, I will be reading chapter 2 and so on. I do want to finish the entire Heaven Official's Blessing with you guys, so don't worry, I do have chapter 2, volume 2 right here, so yay! Yeah, by this point in time when I'm recording this video, it's already been my birthday, so happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me, cumpleaños, cumpleaños, felicidades a mí. Pero, yes, it's already been my birthday. Let's just get to reading. Before anything, we get my typical disclaimers and let us out. Uno, I have no affiliations with MXTX or with 7Cs. This isn't an official audiobook. This is just girls who wanna have fun. Disclaimer numero dos. By this point in time, you guys probably already know, but I am not a native Chinese speaker, so there might be names of people or places that I may mispronounce. That is not me trying to make a mockery or a joke of the Chinese language. I just do not speak it. And even if I do speak English, which is my third disclaimer, I might speak it, but when it comes to reading, I do kind of struggle. See, I stumble on my words a lot. That is just what comes with it. Sorry about that. But with all that being said, now it's time for chapter 10. Windmaster in white, bellowing sandstorm from nowhere. Xie Lian unconsciously stepped forward to stand in front of San Lang. I know better than anyone where my place is, Xie Lian replied. Then how dare you still stand next to him? Fu Yao shouted. Because if I stand next to him, the snakes won't come. Xie Lian answered. ... Hearing the response, Sang that he puffed and laughed out loud. Fu Yao grinned grimmer. He grew grimmer, not grinned grimmer. Grimmer and grimmer. His face suddenly turned completely black. It wasn't just his face, but Xie Lian's entire view that dimmed into darkness. The screen of flames and the ring of fire created by Fu Yao were suddenly completely extinguished. Within the darkness, Xie Lian heard San Lang snicker and say, "Useless trash." Then, he felt San Lang's grip his shoulder to pull him close. Soon after, Xie Lian heard a sudden downpour of endless battering above them, like a thunderstorm hitting an umbrella. Needless to say, now that the defense barrier was gone, the snakes deluge? Look, they came pouring down like mad. The open umbrella was blocking the downpour, and Xie Lian could smell the thick, foul stench of blood. He was about to fight, but San Lang stopped him. Don't move. Lowlifes will dare approach. His tone was confident. The first sentence was soft and gentle. The second, arrogant. Xie Lian wasn't worried, but hearing Fu Yao's angry roars across the pit, sounding like he was getting bombarded by snakes, he called out, "San Lang." "No," San Lang replied. He just instantly went, "No." Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How did you know? Honestly, that's my same reaction most of the time. Like, should I laugh? Should I cry? Well, the world may never know. How did you know what I was gonna say? Don't worry so much. He can't die, San Lang said. Just then another roar came from ahead of them in the pit. "Ban Yue, if you want me to die, have them bite me and kill me in one go. What the hell is this?" "It's not me," Ban Yue cried. It seemed that Kemo had awoken after the punch, discovered him submerged in countless of snakes, and believed it to be Ban Yue's doing. "Fu Yao, can you light another fire? Do it again, please," Xie Lian shouted. Fu Yao gritted his teeth. "That cad next to you is restricting my light. He's restricting my powers. I can't light anything." Xie Lian felt dread, and San Lang said, "It's not me." Jeez. I know it's not you, sweetie, Xie Lian said, but that's precisely what's wrong. Both Banyu and Kemo are bound by the immortal binding rope, so they can't use their power. My powers are, well, depleted, and you're not restricting anyone, meaning there's a sixth person in this pit. Have you lost your mind? Fuyao demanded. What sixth person? No one else came down. Who's there? Banyu suddenly said. Banyu, what's happening? Is someone over there? Xie Lian asked. Someone? Banyue's voice cut off. Whether her mouth was sealed shut or she lost consciousness, they didn't know. Xie Lian called out again. Banyue! Fuya was still out fighting snakes, and brief flashes of white light blasted in waves in the darkness. Be careful! She might be tricking you! Not necessarily, Xie Lian shouted. I'm gonna save her first! Xie Lian was about to run into the snake deluge when he heard Sanlang's voice next to his ear. All right. Xie Lian felt the hand gripping his shoulder tighten, and in a flash they were dashing forward. Xie Lian realized in awe that the youth was advancing and attacking at the same time, but with an umbrella in one hand. Just in case. And him in the other. In the darkness, silver shimmers flashed about once more, clanking and clinking, when suddenly the sharp sound of two swords clashing rang in everyone's ears. Oh, Sanlang said, there really is a sick person. Interesting. Xie Lian had no idea how Sanlang was controlling the weapons or what kind of weapon it was, but whatever it was, it most certainly did crash, head to head into another. His opponent remained silent, and Xie Lian could only hear metal scraping metal. Metal scraping metal. Yeah, that's the word. Why did I sound very I don't know, sounded weird. As the fight intensified, from time to time there would be sparks flashing in the dark, but each flash was so short-lived it was hard to see the other's face. Xie Lian listened to the fight while calling out, Banwei, are you still conscious? Can you respond? No one responded. Fuyao exclaimed, maybe the one fighting now is her. No, that is definitely not Banwei, Xie Lian said. While both times were in the dark, when Sunlight fought Camel, he was light-footed and messing about, toying with the man. This fight, however, Xie Lian could tell Sunlight he was taking it very seriously. The opponent was extremely skilled in martial arts and weaponry. Ban Yue was small and weak. From the looks of her her limbs alone, it was quite obvious that strength and weaponry were not her forte. Look, not trying to speak ill on her, but her noodle arms could only go so far. It was obvious that strength and weaponry were not her forte, so it was impossible for her to be the one fighting Sanlang. But who was the sixth person? When did they appear? Fuyao gripped. Someone who would betray her own country is no different from Xuanji. Why on earth do you still believe in her? Fuyao, can you not be so irritated all of a sudden? Huh? Budo, Xie Lian said. You? Wait. What did you just say? Fuyao struck out another palm and blew away a bunch of snakes. I said, why on earth would you believe in her? Like you believe in that cat next to you. No, not that. You said Xuanji. You mentioned Xuanji's name, didn't you? Xie Lian said. Yeah, so what? She's completely irrelevant. I was just trying to give a reference, be hip and cool like that. Bitch. Sheesh. Can't I be up with the trends? Xie Lian, however, held his breath. A moment later, he called out, Stop fighting! There's no more need to hide. I know who you are. The sound of blades clashing never halted. The other was unmoved, but Xie Lian wasn't worried. Did you think I was bluffing when I said I already knew who you were? General Pei Jr. Dun dun dun. Who are you talking to? Fu Yao dumbstruck. General Pei Jr., don't be crazy. Who do you think he is? If he descended, everyone would have known. You're very right, Xie Lian said. But what if it wasn't his true self that descended? Dun, 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 dun. In the darkness, the fight weapons faltered for a split second, then picked up anew. Xie Lian continued. It took me too long to figure it out. I should have known from the beginning. I knew that for close to 200 years there was something causing havoc, but none of the heavenly officials cared, and no one dared to speak of it. So there had to be something or someone no one wanted to offend keeping the scandal under wraps. Since I wasn't familiar with many of the officials, well, I didn't dare boldly pin this on anyone, and never tried to boldly deduce which heavenly official it could be. It was Fu Yao's mention of Xuanji that reminded him. It wasn't hard to connect the subject of Xuanji to the two general pays, and the north was their territory. Fu Yao once said it in passing that prior to this ascension, General Pei Jr. slaughtered a city. Which city? Well, it could very well be the kingdom of Banyu itself. Dun dun dun. The upper court wouldn't bat an eyelash at something like this. Everyone needed to spill some blood if they wanted, you know, wanted to do great things. But slaughtering a city wasn't anything glorious. After all, if the story spread too far, it would affect the number of new believers. So of course there would be some cover-ups after Ascension. Thus, even if everyone knew something was, off, that sort happened. They probably didn't know the details, or, well, they probably just didn't care. They didn't give a flying hoot about it. Besides, unless someone possessed some sort of deep grudge, who would think, or who would have had the time of motivation to dig up his past and offend the support behind him, Xie Lian spoke slowly. That mud-face said there was someone amongst us who visited the city 50 or 60 years ago, somewhere around there, right? At first, I thought he was lying to deceive us into getting close, but his words may very well have been true. Before, in that group of people, the one I was the most suspicious of was you. The caravan followed you, and you could take them anywhere. I had never seen a single scorpion snake in the years I lived near Banyue, and now, while randomly seeking shelter from the sandstorm, they just happened to show up. I asked you to come search for the Shanwei fern with us, but just before we left, you gave the direction to the ruins to the others so they could follow in our footsteps if they could no longer sit still. Earlier, on top of the walls, I already said that if anything were to happen, I would go forward first. You, who was always calm, suddenly jumped and died? A meaningless death? Xie Lian continued after a pause. Your actions were strange and illogical at every turn. That it took me until now to realize. Who you are really is too late. Isn't that right, General Pei Jr.? Or should I use your current name? Ah, Zhao. Abruptly, everything became still. It was a moment before a frigid voice spoke. Did you not suspect that the mud face might have been talking about the red-clothed boy next to you? Just as he spoke, a stream of flames suddenly lit up across the center's pit. Under the light, two bloody silhouettes were revealed. One was Sanlang, dressed in red, standing properly and with his weapon already tucked away. The other was a plainly clothed young man with a sword tightly in hand, still brandished at the ready. The plain-clothed man was covered in blood, looking like he was also dressed in red. His expression was cold and reserved, and he was carrying someone over his shoulder, and it was, indeed, Azal. Next page. To be fair, whether it was General Pei Jr. himself or Azal that composed, calm and collected Aura never changed. Only Xie Lian never thought in that direction, so he hadn't connected the two until now. The one he was carrying over his shoulders was Banyue. It seemed he had called forth the snakes in order to steal her away during the chaos. How did I lose my place? Okay, yeah. Now that his identity was revealed, he no longer needed to create havoc, and that snake deluge eased its bombardment. He sheathed his sword and gently laid Banyue on the ground. On the side, Kimmel was shocked. "Who are you? Didn't you fall to your death?" Azal didn't spare to look at Kimmel. Instead, staring intently at Sanlang, "Kimmel, you really haven't changed in hundreds of years," he said, simply in the Banyue tongue. Perhaps this maddeningly, perhaps this stupid-ass tone was overly familiar. Kimmel's face immediately scrunched up in rage. "It's you, Pei Hu." If not for the immortal binding rope solidly tying him down, Kimmel would have lunged at him to fight to the death. "General Pei Jr., Xie Lian said, "those scorpion snakes listen to more. Jesus Christ, can I read? Those scorpion snakes listened to more than one command, didn't they? You controlled all the snakes that Banyue said no longer obeyed her, and took them out to do harm, correct?" It was me." "Did Banyue teach you how to control the scorpion snakes?" Xie Lian questioned. "She didn't," Pei Hu said. "But I easily learned for myself how she does it. General Pei Jr. is exceedingly intelligent after all," Xie Lian commented. After a pause, he then asked, "When did you two meet? How did you two meet?" Pei Hu, however, gave him a look. "General Hua," Xie Lian was puzzled. "Why are you calling me by that title, too?" Pei Hu asked quietly. "You don't recognize me, General Hua?" Dot, dot, dot. Now Xie Lian did. The beginning was kind of blurry. Banyue was bullied and ignored by, all the Banyue children, when she was younger, you know the story. And only a young boy of Yong'an would sometimes play with her, give her some attention. Like Banyue, that boy didn't talk very much, quiet, a number of children, living on the border were from military families, and many also enlisted in the army when they grew older. Could it be? "It's you!" Xie Lian said. Well, he was surprised. I can't believe it. I can't believe it took me this long to realize it was you." Pei Hu nodded. "It's me. I've only just recognized the general, too." No wonder. So it turned out Banyue and the enemy general had already known each other since childhood. "Did Banyue really heed your order to open the city gates?" Xie Lian asked. On the other side, Kimmel spat and yelled, "Despicable Pei Hu! Untie these ropes! Let me fight him to the death!" Pei Hu said coldly, "First of all, we already had a battle to the death 200 years ago, and you lost. Second of all, how am I despicable?" Kimmel exclaimed. How could we have lost if you hadn't colluded?" "Kimmel, don't deny it," Pei Hu said. "Even though I only had a troop of 2,000 for me, breaking through the city gates was only a matter of time." Xie Lian couldn't help but interrupt. Wait a sec. You only had 2,000 under you? And you were sent to invade a country? Why was that? Isn't that no different from sending you to your own death? Were you perhaps even more elbowed out in the army than I was? Dot, dot, dot. Pei Xiu stopped talking. It seemed Xie Lian had hit the nail on the head. Xie Lian then asked, if you knew it was a sure win, why did you have Banyue? The next page. Why did you have Banyo open the city gates? Because I needed to slaughter the city, Pei Xiu replied. What do you mean? Xie Lian asked. Since you all were already going to win, why did you have to slaughter the city? It couldn't be his hobby. I don't think so. That's a weird hobby then. Jeez. It was precisely because victory was at hand that we had to wipe out the city, Pei Xiu said. And it had to be as soon as possible, immediately, leaving no one behind. That leaving none behind sounded ghastly. Xie Lian pushed. And the reason was? Pei Xiu answered. On the nights before the invasion, many of the leaders of Banyu major clans gathered for a meeting and decided on a secret plot. What plot? The people of Banyu were fierce in nature and hated Yong'an to the very core, Pei Xiu said. Even knowing they were about to be defeated, they wouldn't submit. So the entire population of the kingdom, the young and the old, the women and the men, all banded together to assemble something. And what was that something? Xie Lian could guess, but he wasn't sure. The word that came out of Pei Xiu's mouth confirmed his suspicion. Explosives. Pei Xiu slowly enunciated each word. They decided that if the kingdom was to fall, the citizens would all carry explosives on their bodies, escape to Yong'an, and mix into large crowds in large crowded areas and blow themselves up and cause riot. Meaning, if they had to die, then they would drag as many Yong'an people down with them as they could. If the kingdom shall fall, then they could terrorize the country that brought their downfall. Which was why they had, to be annihilated before those civilians had the time to flee. Xie Lian instantly turned to Campbell, roughly summarized for him in the Banyu language, and asked, Is this true? Campbell looked Dantry and made no attempt to conceal the fact. It's true. Sun Lung quirked his brow at this comment. How vile, he said. Those words in the Banyu tongue, though whether it was intentional was unknown. Campbell replied angrily, Vile? What right do you have to call us vile? If it wasn't for your assault, we wouldn't have been forced to make this move. You ruined us, so we sought revenge. How is that wrong? Pei Xiu responded, Really now? How about we lay everything out in the open then? How many times did Banyu citizens start riots near the border? How many caravans and travelers going to the west region from Yong'an were ambushed by Banyu? You intentionally sheltered the bandits that terrorized Yong'an and killed our soldiers, sent to exterminate them under the pretense of illegal border crossing. How is that not vile? Pei Xiu spoke unhurriedly, and his tone was calm, but each word was like a sharp knife. Kimmel argued, but it's because you forcibly occupied that land first. We had no choice but to retaliate. The border had always been ambiguous, so how can you say we forcibly occupied your land? Pei Xiu countered. The lines were clearly drawn. It was you who didn't keep the agreement. The lines were drawn by Banyu, and Yong'an never agreed to them. Your so-called drawn border was nothing but pushing us into the desert and keeping the oasis all for yourselves. How ridiculous! Camel continued furiously. The oasis was always ours. Our forefathers, generation after generation, the Banyu had always lived in the oasis. Both sides had their stories. Just listening to them argue befall whatever Xie Lian. The hostility was making him remember how badly he got beaten up, stuck in between both sides, and he could feel the pain on their on his face. The memories. All those footsteps. No, back of my mind, back of the mind. Put it in the vault, put it in the vault, put it in the vault. Pei Xiu seemed to have had enough of quarreling with Camel, and he turned to Xie Lian. So, you see, there are many things in the world that simply cannot be cleared, defined, or resolved. You can only fight. Next page. Xie Lian sighed. I'll agree to the first part. Sanlang, on the other hand, said, Oh, I agree to the second part. Violence is definitely the answer. Campbell's anger was somewhat curbed, and he suddenly said, the majority of Yong'an people were shameless, but you were the most shameless I'd ever met, Pei Xiu. You're a cold-hearted man. You don't kill us for your country, and it wasn't to save your people. Pei Xiu fell silent. Camel continued, You were the son of an exiled man, looked down on by all. You only wanted to secure your footing in the Yong'an army and keep climbing up, so you had to win that battle. So sad that Ban Yue still thought you were good and let you use her and betrayed us for the likes of you. But isn't General Pei Jr. a descendant of General Pei? Xie Lian wondered. To have such a renowned ancestor watching over him, how could he have fallen so astray? He's not a direct descendant of General Pei, Sanling said. He's from, however, many branches out. So that was it. That meant he had not ascended. If he had not ascended, he probably would have had any chance of being blessed by the old ancestor. Pei Xiu said quietly, Ban Yue had always been my subordinate and only infiltrated the kingdom of Ban Yue under my command. She is from both Ban Yue and Yong'an. Once she chose her side, she had to be loyal to that side, and there was no such thing as a betrayal. The Ban Yue people were evil. I have no regrets about killing them. Suddenly a voice came from above. No regrets about killing? Well said. Will you say the same about all the travelers who you misled to this pass and who lost their lives in this pit? The voice had come from above everyone's head, and Xie Lian instantly looked up. Which great master is here among us? There wasn't a response, but a sudden strange noise. Whoosh! Whoosh! It was like the bellowing of wild winds. When the sound finally came near, Xie Lian could finally say with certainty it definitely was the bellowing of the wild winds. Do-do-do-do-do. The abrupt gale entered the sinner's pit from above, swept all the way to the bottom, and rolled everyone into the air. Xie Lian immediately grabbed for Sanlang, who was the closest to him, and carried. Watch out! Sanlang caught him too. Face unchanging, Xie Lian only felt a spinning whirl, their bodies swiftly rising, and after a pause, they started plunging down. Xie Lian quickly tossed out Roye and coaxed in the midst of the chaos. All right, everything's over. Hurry up, my good Roye. Come on and give us a hand. After a couple of, pets, Roye finally flew out. However, with nothing in the air to grab on to in a giant sinner's pit below, Roye flew around once and shrank back, feeling resigned. Xie Lian could only adjust his form for landing. If this was like previous incident, he would have crattered headfirst for landing. If this was like previous incidents, yeah. 3 feet into the ground, but this time, just before they hit the ground, San Lang reached out and gave him a pull, and he actually landed on it with his feet, flat to the ground. When his boots firmly touched down, he was even a little incredulous, but that feeling went away very quickly when the black-clad silhouette came stumbling before him. Xie Lian saw who it was and called out in delight, "Nanfeng!" It was Nanfeng, indeed, but a disheveled Nanfeng. It looked as if he was rolled in a dirt 1,000 times before getting thrown into a rambunctious den of beasts to spend the night. His clothes were tattered and frayed unkept to the max. Hearing Xie Lian call, he only waved and quietly whipped his face, unable to even speak. Xie Lian helped him to his feet. "What happened? Did those 2 ladies beat you up?" Before he finished, 2 figures appeared behind Nanfeng and walked over. One of them was the female cultivator in white with a whisk in her arm, and she greeted Xie Lian cheerfully. "How do you do, your High Royal Highness?" Although Xie Lian didn't know who this was, her etiquette must still be followed. But he didn't know how to address her, so he could only, ooh. Okay, I'm gonna take a photo of this because absolute goddesses. Oh my goodness gracious. They look so beautiful. Oh my god. They are definite queens. Like, Jesus Christ. Mira, 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 mira. Absolutely beautiful. I love their faces so much. Like, mwah, beautiful, 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 beautiful save. Okay. So, Xie Lian did the smile and wave, boys. Greetings, fellow cultivators. The lady in black, standing to the side, glanced coldly at Xie Lian, but didn't seem to care about him. When her eyes moved to San Lang, however, she seemed to think he was a dubious figure and stopped for a moment. Did I skip something? The gust earlier had blown everyone out of the pit, and the 2 ladies walked past Xie Lian, heading straight to Pei Shu. He saw them approaching and didn't appear surprised. After all, he had already seen them in town when he was still, playing the part of Azao. He knelt. He knelt where he was, bowed his head, and the lady cultivator white and greeted her quickly. "Lord Windmaster." Xie Lian was stunned hearing those words. And here he had thought she was a menacing ghost or monster. Huh? Who knew she was actually a heavenly official? And she was the Windmaster, the only one who was giving out thousands of merits in one go in the communication array. Uh-oh. But now that he thought about it in detail, there wasn't anything out of place at the time. She had said something along the lines of, "Now where did they go? Do I have to dig them out and kill them one by one?" And made him think she was going after them. In reality, the they might not have meant their group. She could have meant the Banwei soldiers. Xie Lian thought he was alone in the investigation, and thus naturally thought the lady cultivators were strange and wicked. Xie Lian couldn't help but feel a nameless reverence towards a heavenly official who could easily hand out tens of thousands of merits. He turned to Nanfeng. Why didn't you tell me it was the Windmaster sooner? And here? I thought she might be some sort of snake or scorpion spirit. Such improper. I'm so improper. Nanfeng's expression darkened. "I didn't know it was the Windmaster. I've never seen the Windmaster like this before. The Windmaster has always been..." Never mind. Xie Lian understood. This was probably a fake appearance the Lord Windmaster don't. So he didn't dig into it. He asked, "Why did the Windmaster come to Banyu Pass?" "To help out," Nanfeng said. "When we saw them strolling in the streets earlier, they were actually looking for those Banjue soldiers. Xie Lian recalled now the first time he asked about the Banjue pass in the communication array in the midst of the silent awareness. It was the Windmaster sudden release of 10,000 mirrors that distracted everyone. The Windmaster had probably taken notice of his query then. As Xie Lian must, the Windmaster crouched down in front of Pei Xiu. Little Pei, I've heard everything you know. Pei Xiu hung his head. The Windmaster demanded, do you admit that for the past 200 years, you are the one who lured all those travelers in the ancient kingdom of Banwei? Since he was already caught, Pei Xiu didn't argue and only replied solemnly, it was me. Why? The Windmaster demanded. After a pause, Pei Xiu asked, Lord Windmaster has long been suspicious. Can you not guess why? Is it only because those souls of the dead are iron proof of the blood on your hands, while you were a human and would become obstacles to your climbing higher in the future? Huh? The Windmaster asked. Pei Xiu neither agreed nor disagreed, normal shenanigans. Xie Lian who was listening from the side, couldn't help but ask, if anything, why didn't you just kill them directly? Why instead of, why instead was your method feeding them the living to appease their resentment? How is that different from quenching the thirst of one by using another's flesh and blood? Stanley replied, he couldn't. That was true too. So, in the upper court, every move by a heavenly official like Pei Xiu was watched intently by countless of eyes. There were many things he couldn't do directly. He couldn't use his true form to come down openly to kill all the resentful spirits and of the soldiers, and he couldn't send troops to annihilate them either. This was already a concealed affair. If there were too much of a stir, wouldn't it only attract everyone's gaze? At most, he could only send a clone like Azao to, down quickly. Using the scorpion snakes that Banyu was, a known expert in manipulating, to go out and cause harm, attracting passerbys to feed the resentful spirits and disperse their resentment. It was no doubt murder by proxy. Your General Pei wouldn't have ever done something like this, the Windmaster said. This time, I'm afraid you've crossed the line. The fact that he would release a clone to cause the havoc in the Banyu Pass for almost 200 years and lure innumerable passerbys down the wrong path and into the ruins to die in the mounts of Banyu soldiers for a heavenly official, this was no small issue whatsoever. Pei Xiu had his head bowed low, his junior nose. The Windmaster swept her wrist. As long as you understand, reflect on yourself, and think on it. We'll talk this in the heavens. I understand, Pei Xiu said quietly. Having finished talking with Pei Xiu, the Windmaster stuffed the whisk into the back collar of her robe, stood up, and smiled at Xie Lian. Your Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, I've heard much about you. To Xie Lian, heard much about you really wasn't a compliment, but nonetheless, it was meaningless pleasantry. So he smiled back. I'm sure it's nothing. I've heard much more about you as well, Lord Windmaster. Sorry about before, by the way, the Windmaster said. Xie Lian paused. Before? What happened before? Didn't you all run into a windstorm in the desert? Thinking back, Xie Lian could almost taste the mouthful of sand. He replied, Yeah. I started that, the Windmaster said. ... The Windmaster explained. The windstorm was meant to stop you all from going near the kingdom of Banwei, but not only did you, get blown away, you went around and ended up in Banyu anyway, so The longer Xie Lian listened, the more he felt something wasn't right. First, she used a windstorm to stop them from getting to Banyu Pass, and now this whole thing was suddenly out in the open. What did it mean? Xie Lian didn't respond. biding his time to see what the others would say. The Woodmaster then continued, "But in regard to the whole, ordeal, it would be best if your highness got no further involvement." Xie Lian stole a look at Ban Yue curled up in the ground and felt his dread rise. He was already worried that if the scandal were to reach the upper court, the officials could easily, muck up the truth, add strokes where they couldn't, and have Ban Yue take all the blame while Pei ran off scot-free. With Windmaster suddenly appeared, telling him not to get further involved, didn't that cement that they were going to protect little Pei? Without any chance in expression, Xie Lian stepped forward to stand in front of Ban Yue, hiding her behind him, and said warmly, "But I'm already further involved, so telling me to leave it now is fairly pointless, no?" The Windmaster flashed a smile. "Don't worry, you can take the state preceptor of Ban Yue away with you." Now that was unexpected. Xie Lian was slightly taken aback, and the Windmaster continued, "While you were all in the pit, we heard everything from up here. Although the state preceptor has turned into a rat, when I roamed the city, I saw that she had drawn the array to trap the Banyue soldiers and released all the captured mortals. She didn't hurt anyone and even saved people. So the only ones I'm taking are General Pei Jr. and Kemo. You don't have to worry about me placing undue blame on anyone." Xie Lian relaxed, much ashamed that I was suspicious. "It's normal to worry," the Windmaster said. "There's certainly an unpleasant culture in the upper courts, after all." The lady in black looked as if she couldn't stay for a moment longer and spoke up. "Are you done? If you're done, let's go." The Windmaster rebutted. "Tisk! What's the rush? The more you rush, the more I want to talk." Still, she turned her head and smiled, taking out a folding fan from her waist. "Your Royal Highness, if there's nothing else, we'll see you in the upper court." Xie Lian nodded, and the Windmaster opened her fan. On the fan was the word for wind, feng, on a slant, and 3 inclined lines like wind on the back. That had to be the Windmaster's spiritual device. She fanned. She fanned forward 3 times and backward 3 times. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew from out of nowhere. The wind drew dust and sand, and Xie Lian raised his sleeves to block the debris. When the wind died down, the 2 ladies of Pei Shu and Camel had all disappeared, leaving behind only Xie Lian, Sunlight, Nanfeng, and the curled-up Ban Yue on the ground. Xie Lian dropped his sleeves, still a little dazed. "What just happened?" Sunlight casually strolled over. "A pretty good thing." Xie Lian looked at him. "Is it?" "Yeah. The Windmaster was trying to help you by telling you not to get involved." Nanfeng walked over too. "That's right. You've dug too deep into this business. The only thing left to do is to file a complaint to the Heavenly Emperor. Don't get yourself any more involved." Xie Lian got it. Is it because of General Pei? "Correct," Nanfeng said. This time you really have offended him, though." Xie Lian laughed. "I knew I was going to offend someone one of these days. I guess it doesn't matter who." Nanfeng furrowed his brows. "Don't think I'm joking. After the Palace of Divine Might, the next most powerful martial palace is Mingguang. General Pei thinks very highly of little Pei and has long been trying to oust Chuan Zishen. I think that's how you say Chuan or Quan. Chuan Zishen. He's gonna come knocking, looking for trouble." "Chuan Yishen is the martial god that rules the West, right?" Xie Lian said. "That's the one," Nanfeng replied. "Chuan Yishen is also a new official. He ascended around the same time as Pei Shu. He's young and okay, but he's very powerful. General Pei intended for Pei Shu to take over all the devotees of the West, and he's done well for himself, especially these past few years. Now with you up dragging this scandal onto the open, it's not looking good for Pei Shu. Maybe he'll even get banished, and if he gets banished, your luck is gonna turn for the worse. It's gonna turn for worse too." Xie being like, Xie being like, I already have shit. Like the fuck you on about? Like, excuse me, getting your worse luck than what I got right now? Impossible. Xie rubbed his forehead, mentally taking note that from now on he would have to be more mindful when eating, drinking, and walking. San Lang, however, didn't think it was a big deal. Don't worry, Pei Ming is too proud. He won't do anything underhanded. Nam Feng gave him a look. What about the Windmaster? Xie Lian asked. She told me not to get involved, meaning she's the one who will file the complaint. In that case, wouldn't she become the one offending General Pei? I can't have that. Let's call her back. Nanfeng, do you know the password to her personal communication array? You needn't worry about the Windmaster, Nanfeng said. General Pei can't hurt you, but he won't touch her. She may be younger than you, but she's much more successful in the heavens. That fucking offended me. Xie Lian wasn't shocked into silence, but was instead thinking, who in the heavens is more of a failure than me? I don't think there's anyone. Huh? You can't hurt my feelings. I hurt them myself on the daily basis. Selang laughed. With that backing, of course she's successful. Are you talking about the lady in black? She looks to be a strong character too. Xie Lian remarked. No, Sanai replied. But she must also be one of the 5 elemental masters that make up wind, water, fire, earth, and thunder. I recommend not offending her. The wind master could start a twister from nowhere, which was obviously powerful, but the lady in black was stronger. Xie Lian kept thinking that the lady had noticed something in San Lang and felt rather concerned. I agree. To what? To agree. Still, there were words that Xie Lian thought didn't need to be said, so he swallowed them. He thought, even someone with a strong backing may not be successful. Back in the day, the Crown Prince of Xianle had the support of the Heavenly Emperor who ruled all 3 realms for 1,000 years. He was still a failure, though. Xie Lian picked up his fallen bamboo hat, dusted it off, and sighed in relief upon that it was flattened. Oh. He tied it to the back around his neck and looked at Nanfeng. You weren't cursed and beaten up by those 2 ladies the whole time, were you? Yeah, we fought the whole time, Nanfeng replied, face dark. She again patted his shoulder. Thanks for your hard work. Suddenly he remembered another hard worker and turned around. Where's Fu Yao? Wasn't he watching the bitten man? Nanfeng responded. Xie Lian didn't recall seeing Fu Yao getting blown out to the sinner's pit. Actually, ever since Azao revealed himself, there had been no sight of him. If he didn't leave, then he must have left when the wind blew. Xie Lian wasn't actually that worried. He figured Fu Yao didn't want to get mixed up with this mess, so he ran off. But having heard Nanfeng say bitten, he snapped out of it, and they both cried at the same time. The Shan Yue Fern! The sky is only just lighting, no rush, San Lang said. However, there was no such thing as no rush when it was about saving lives, even if they were far from the 24-hour deadline. Who knew if anything else had happened all this time? Xie Lian had no time to think about Fu Yao. He hurried, lifting Ban Yue onto his back, and ran towards the palace grounds. Once at the palace, Xie Lian laid Ban Yue down and immediately picked a few large bundles of the Shan Yue fern. That mud face was still on the ground, the face bloody, mess among all the white bones. In the past, Xie Lian would have buried it, but first of all, he was in a hurry to save people. And second, that man had been buried in the ground for 50 or 60 years. He must not want to go back. But the corpse of the dead merchant was missing, and Xie Lian stopped puzzled. Just then, San Lang emerged from the palace with a very small clay pot. When Xie Lian saw, he merely called out, Good San Lang, thank you! Ban Yue was weak, and they couldn't root her, so Xie Lian shrank her and tucked her into the pot. with the ferns collected the ground, rushed back. It had been like 80 hours since they left, so returning to where Fu Yao had drawn the circle, Xie Lian saw that the man was still sitting properly within it, too scared to venture out of it. The old man who had taken Nanfeng's pill was doing all right, and after applying the herb into his wound and having him eat the plant, he was able to stand and walk after resting for a while. Xie Lian didn't think there was any need to tell them where the herb used to grow. It was best for his mental state. After some time, the merchant settled down, and they began to worry. Where's Tianchen? Why haven't the others returned? Xie Lian had been too busy picking herbs to find him earlier, plus he was not a single Banyue soldier left in the ruins, so he hadn't bothered with, Tianchen and the others. He was just thinking about going back to search for them when he heard the voice of a boy yelling as he ran closer and closer. Xie Lian turned his head, and sure enough, it was Tianchen. The boy had a large bundle of the Shanyue fern in his hand, and behind him were two merchants, all huffing and puffing. Xie Lian asked them what had happened and learned that while the top of the wall of the sinner's pit, Banyue swept the soldiers down and captured Tianchen and the merchants. They were terrified, but Banyue only led them down from the pit and directed them where to go before sending them on their way. They escalated, picked the herbs, buried the dead merchant's body, and rushed back as fast as they could. Yet they still were slower than Xie Lian. In any case, Xie Lian escorted the caravan out of the Gobi Desert and ended his journey at last. Before they bid farewell, Tianchen snuck out to find him and whispered mysteriously, "Zege, I have a question for you." "Ask away," Xie Lian said. "You're actually a god, aren't you?" Dot, dot, dot. Xie Lian was astonished but also a little touched. In the past, there was a time when he'd holler and announce to the world, "I'm a god! I am the crown prince, his royal highness!" And no one would believe him. This time, he hadn't even said anything. And the other party asked him if he was a god. It made him both astonished and moved. Tang Shen added immediately, "I saw you use spells. Don't worry, I won't tell." How would he even tell? No one would believe you, Xie Lian thought. Tian Shen continued, "If not for you, I would have gotten thrown into the pit by the bunch of ugly ghost soldiers. When I go home, I'll build you a temple and worship you." Xie Lian watched him pat his chest and make very big hand gesture, and couldn't help but let out a laugh. He smiled. Then, "Thank you." San Lang was standing on the side, and he chuckled lightly. For some unknown reason, Xie Lian didn't think it was because he thought of the child's naive words were ridiculous. Although children had no idea just how much work went into constructing a temple, receiving such a promise, whether it would be for fulfillment or not, was nevertheless a happy occasion. After much hassling, he made up a random title, "The Scrap Immortal," to leave behind. Then he waved and walked off in the opposite direction. Nanfeng drew another teleportation array and sent them all back to Puchi Shrine. Oh yes, no air conditioning has been invented yet, but much cooler than over there. So it's basically like air conditioning at this point. Whew. Xie Lian sighed. Opening the door, Xie Lian looked. He took the straw hat. Opening the door, Xie Lian took the straw mat out, laid it open on the ground, and collapsed on it like a dead body. This was done all in one breath. San Lang sat down next to him and watched him, and hand propping up his chin. Xie Lian sighed. "How long were we gone?" "About 3-4 days," San Lang replied. Xie Lian sighed again. Only 3 4 days. Why am I so tired? Ever since he ascended, he was worked to the bone like a dog. No lie. After he was done sighing, Xie Lian looked up. Huh? Nothing. Why haven't you gone to report back yet? Report back where? Nanfeng asked. Aren't you an official of Nanyang Palace? Won't your general miss you after 3 to 4 days? My general isn't on the palace right now, so he won't miss me. Nanfeng replied. Jillian rolled over and got up. All right, I'll be good too, if you stay. What are you doing? Nanfeng asked. Jillian looked at him cheerfully. I'm going to cook you a meal as a reward for your hard work. Nanfeng's face dropped drastically. He raised a hand, pressed 2 fingers together, and touched his temple as if receiving someone's private communication. He got up and rushed. There's an emergency in the palace. I'll see you later. Bye. Julian raised his hand. What? Nothing. Don't go. How can there be suddenly an emergency? I really want to thank you for everything. This is an emergency. What can I say about it? Hmm? 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 Dumping roared and ran out the door. Julian sat back down on the mat and looked at Sun Lung. I guess he's not hungry. There was a loud bang before Sun Lung could reply, and it was Nanfeng who'd run back, blocking the doorway. You too. Xie Lian and Sun Lung were sitting together on the mat, and they both looked up at him. What about us two? Yeah, what about us two? Come on. Nanfeng pointed his finger at Sun Lang and then at Xie Lian. Words stuck in his throat and unable to speak then. He finally, I'll be back. You're welcome anytime, Xie Lian said. Nanfeng gave Sun Lang one last stink eye before closing the door and leaving. Xie Lian crossed his arms and tilted his head. Yeah, sorry. And tilted his head like Sun Lang and said, looks like there really is an emergency. Huh, who would have known? I thought they were just coming up with excuses. He turned to look at the youth next to him and smiled cheerfully. He's not hungry. How about you? Are you hungry? Sunlight smiled cheerfully back. I'm starving. Shilian Shilian grinned and stood up again before turning around and casually tidying the altar table. All right then. What do you want to eat, Hua Cheng? Hua Cheng. Behind him, there was a silence, then chuckled. I still prefer the name Sanlang. And that is the end of chapter 10 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Da, 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 da. If you guys been liking my reading, you guys can like, comment, and subscribe. You know, all the fun YouTube thingies. There's an entire playlist if you guys want to, hear the previous chapters. But other than that, hope you have a good day, night, wherever you are, however you are, and bye.